Hi guys, and welcome once again to Stellar HFY. First of all, thank you. Seriously, the support you've been giving this channel lately has been incredible. Today, we're diving into something truly spectacular. A tale that asks the question, what happens when a single human space station faces the combined might of three entire galactic empires? So settle in. Let's get started. Admiral Kress is transmitting on all frequencies, Captain. He's demanding immediate surrender of this facility. Communications Officer Jonas Wright kept his voice steady, despite the tremor in his hands as he adjusted the quantum receiver array. The massive heads-up display before him showed three distinct fleet formations approaching their position, each one representing firepower that could reduce entire star systems to cosmic dust. Captain Marcus Thorne stood behind Wright's console, watching the tactical readouts with a calm expression that had earned him command of humanity's most classified deep space operation. The bridge around them buzzed with controlled activity as his crew prepared for what intelligence reports had warned them was inevitable. War had finally come to this remote corner of space, and Kepler Station found itself positioned exactly where three galactic empires intended to settle their territorial disputes with overwhelming force. "Tell me what you're seeing out there, Wright." Thorne's fingers drummed against the console edge, a habit that emerged only when he was calculating odds that normal people would consider hopeless. Through the reinforced viewports, the darkness of space revealed nothing to human eyes, but the sensor arrays painted a different picture entirely. The Vorthak Empire's dreadnoughts moved in perfect formation, their hulls bristling with weapon systems designed to crack planetary crusts. Behind them, the energy-based vessels of the celestial hegemony shimmered like captured starlight, while the insectoid Krex Dominion's biomechanical ships pulsed with organic rhythms that suggested they were as much alive as they were technological marvels. Wright's console chimed with incoming data streams, each one representing another ship dropping out of hyperspace. Vorthak Admiral is broadcasting what appears to be standard occupation protocols. They're classifying us as a civilian mining operation and expecting immediate compliance with Imperial annexation procedures. The Celestial Fleet arrived approximately 14 minutes after the Vorthak, and their commander is issuing similar demands. The Krex. Wright paused, his expression shifting as new information flooded his screens. The Krex swarm leader is transmitting in mathematical sequences. Dr. Cross would need to analyze it, but it appears to be some form of territorial claiming ritual. Chief Engineer Dmitry Kozlov emerged from the maintenance shaft that connected the bridge to the station's lower levels, his coveralls stained with the exotic residue that accumulated around their specialized mining equipment. "Protocol 7 is ready for activation, Captain. The boys down in engineering have been waiting 15 years to see what these systems can really do when we stop pretending they're just for digging rocks out of space." He wiped his hands on a cleaning cloth, but the slight glow from the exotic matter particles remained on his fingertips, a constant reminder of the dangerous forces they harnessed every day. Thorne nodded, then activated his personal communication link to reach Dr. Samuel Cross in the physics laboratory. "Samuel, I need you to run scenarios on containment field manipulation. Assume we need to modify our current parameters for defensive applications." The response came immediately, Cross's voice carrying the excitement of a scientist finally allowed to test theories that had remained purely academic for decades. "Marcus, I've been modeling those scenarios since we received the first intelligence reports about potential conflict in this sector. The gravitational anomaly we've been mining provides possibilities that these Empire commanders cannot possibly comprehend. Their ships are designed for conventional warfare, not for dealing with controlled space-time distortions." Cross's enthusiasm was infectious, but Thorne knew that enthusiasm alone would not save them from the overwhelming force now surrounding their station. Security Chief Hassan Okafor's voice crackled through the communication system from his position in the station's defensive control center. "Captain, I've got teams positioning themselves throughout all critical sections. The crew understands what we're facing out there, and they're ready to show these empires what happens when you threaten a human installation. Our people volunteered for this assignment, knowing it might come to this." The main heads-up display shifted as Wright processed new intelligence data flowing through their quantum-enhanced communication arrays. "Captain, I'm detecting coordination attempts between the three fleets. They're not working together yet, but they're each trying to establish superiority over this position without triggering a direct confrontation with the other empires. This gives us a narrow window of opportunity. Thorne studied the tactical display, noting the careful positioning of each fleet. The Vorthak maintained their traditional battle formations, preparing for direct assault. The celestial ships arranged themselves in complex geometric patterns that suggested they were building some form of energy manipulation matrix. The Krex vessels moved in seemingly random patterns that probably followed biological imperatives incomprehensible to human military thinking. Right. Activate the passive sensor networks and begin monitoring all interfleet communications. I want to know what they're saying to each other, and more importantly, what they're not saying. Kozlov, start the conversion procedures on mining equipment sections 7 through 12. Make it look like routine maintenance if anyone's watching. Thorne's orders carried the weight of decisions that would determine whether humanity's first contact with these galactic powers would end in annihilation or something approaching survival. The exotic matter processing facility beneath their feet generated a subtle vibration through the station's superstructure, a constant reminder of the forces they controlled. Most civilian installations relied on standard fusion reactors, but Kepler Station drew its power from the carefully contained micro-black hole that had originally attracted human attention to this remote location. The technology required to maintain such a system safely had pushed human engineering far beyond what the galactic community believed possible for their relatively young species. Wright's fingers danced across his control interface as he began implementing electronic warfare protocols that had never been tested against alien technology. Initiating communication intercept procedures, Captain. Their quantum entanglement networks use different encryption methods, but the underlying physics should be similar enough for our exotic matter processors to analyze and potentially manipulate. Through the viewports, the first signs of conflict began manifesting as positioning disputes between the three fleets. Vortex ships adjusted their formations to maintain clear firing solutions on both the station and potential threats from the other empires. Celestial vessels pulsed with increasing energy signatures as their commanders calculated the optimal approach for claiming this strategic location. Krex bioships released clouds of sensor organisms that drifted through space like living reconnaissance networks. Thorne felt the familiar weight of command settling across his shoulders as he prepared to implement strategies that would either secure humanity's position among the galactic powers or result in the complete destruction of everyone under his command. The next few days would determine whether the crew of Kepler Station would be remembered as heroes or simply added to the casualty reports of an interstellar war that had engulfed this sector of space. The communication array suddenly filled with overlapping transmissions as all three Empire commanders attempted to establish direct contact with the station. Admiral Kress of the Vorthak Empire demanded immediate acknowledgement of their territorial claims. The celestial hegemony's voice synthesizer projected mathematical harmonics that Cross would later identify as a form of aesthetic intimidation. The Krex swarm leader transmitted complex pheromone analogs translated into electromagnetic frequencies, creating patterns that triggered primitive fight-or-flight responses in human nervous systems. Captain, they're all broadcasting surrender ultimatums with different time frames, Wright reported, sweat beading on his forehead despite the climate control systems, maintaining perfect environmental conditions. The Vorthak want a response within 6 hours. The Celestials are giving us until their energy matrix reaches full charging capacity, which appears to be approximately 8 hours. The Krex ... Wright consulted his translation algorithms. The Krex are operating on biological cycles that don't translate directly to human time measurements, but Dr. Cross estimates they expect compliance before their sensor organisms complete a full reconnaissance sweep of our defensive capabilities. Kozlov's voice echoed through the bridge from his position near the engineering console. Captain, the mining equipment modifications are proceeding faster than expected. These systems were designed with military applications in mind from the beginning. We're not converting civilian equipment into weapons. We're finally removing the safety restrictions from weapons that were disguised as mining tools. The revelation hung in the air between them, confirming what Thorne had suspected since accepting command of this installation. Kepler Station had never been simply a mining operation. The exotic matter extraction, the gravitational anomaly research, the carefully selected crew of former military specialists, everything had been preparation for exactly this type of confrontation. Humanity had been planning for interstellar conflict long before making official contact with any galactic empire. How long before we can implement full defensive protocols? Thorne asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected the survival of entire crews. Another 18 hours for complete system integration, Kozlov replied, but we can begin limited operations within the next 4 hours if circumstances require immediate action. Thorne nodded, calculating the timing against the various ultimatums they faced. The mathematics of survival required careful orchestration of multiple variables, each one representing potential disaster if miscalculated. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's first encounter with galactic civilization would establish them as a legitimate power or result in their classification as another extinct species that overestimated their capabilities. Through the observation deck, the three fleets continued their careful positioning, each one preparing for possibilities that their commanders could not fully anticipate. Kepler Station maintained its facade of civilian vulnerability while quietly activating systems that would soon reveal the true extent of human technological achievement to an unsuspecting galaxy. "I'm inside their quantum networks, Captain." Wright's voice carried a mixture of disbelief and excitement as his fingers moved across the exotic matter-enhanced interface with surgical accuracy. The alien communication protocols had proven less sophisticated than anticipated, relying on quantum entanglement principles that human physicists had mastered decades earlier. Their encryption assumes we're operating with standard galactic technology. They have absolutely no idea what we're capable of processing with these systems. Thorne leaned forward, studying the streams of intercepted data flowing across Wright's displays. The alien transmissions appeared as cascading symbols and mathematical progressions, each one representing strategic communications between ships that believed their conversations were completely secure. What are they telling each other? The Vorthak commanders are expressing frustration about the other fleet's presence. Admiral Kress considers this a matter of imperial honor and believes the Celestials and Krex are deliberately interfering with legitimate conquest protocols. Wright manipulated the data streams, isolating specific transmission pathways. The Celestial hegemony's communications are more complex. They're treating this as a mathematical problem rather than a military engagement. Their fleet commander is calculating optimal resource allocation for claiming this position while minimizing conflict with the other empires. From the engineering section below, Kozlov's team worked with controlled urgency to implement modifications that would transform Kepler Station's industrial infrastructure into something approaching a military installation. The exotic matter extractors, originally designed to harvest particles from the event horizon of their contained micro-black hole, possessed energy manipulation capabilities that exceeded most conventional weapon systems. The challenge lay in reconfiguring equipment that had operated under strict safety protocols for 15 years into systems capable of engaging multiple alien fleets simultaneously. "Dmitri, report on weapons integration progress." Thorne called through the communication system, maintaining visual contact with the tactical displays showing enemy fleet positions. Kozlov's response carried the satisfaction of an engineer finally allowed to utilize his equipment's full potential. "Captain, these systems were designed for military applications from the beginning. The exotic matter manipulation arrays can be reconfigured to project focused energy beams with destructive potential that exceeds anything in the standard galactic arsenal. The gravitational field generators used for mining operations can create localized space distortions capable of disrupting enemy navigation and weapons targeting systems." Dr. Cross emerged from the physics laboratory carrying data tablets covered with equations that described forces most civilizations considered purely theoretical. "Marcus, I've completed the analysis of our defensive options. The micro-black hole we've been mining provides us with capabilities that these Empire fleets cannot anticipate or effectively counter. We can manipulate gravitational fields, create exotic matter projections, and generate space-time distortions that will appear impossible according to their understanding of physics. The main tactical display updated as Wright successfully penetrated deeper into the alien communication networks. New information streams revealed internal fleet communications, strategic assessments, and most importantly, the assumptions each empire was making about Kepler Station's defensive capabilities. Captain, they're all operating under the belief that we're a standard civilian mining operation with minimal defensive systems. The Vorthak expect to overwhelm us with direct assault. The Celestials are planning to disable our systems using energy manipulation techniques. The Kreks intend to board the station using biological infiltration methods. Thorn processed this intelligence while observing the enemy fleet movements through the station's sensor networks. Each empire continued positioning their forces according to conventional military doctrine, preparing for engagements against opponents who would respond with predictable defensive strategies. The alien commanders had no conceptual framework for understanding what humanity had achieved through decades of exotic matter research disguised as civilian mining operations. Right. Can you begin injecting false information into their communication networks without triggering security protocols? Thorne asked, formulating strategies that would exploit the aliens' technological overconfidence. Already working on it, Captain. Their quantum entanglement systems use standardized protocols across all three empires, probably established through ancient trade agreements or military cooperation treaties. I can mimic the transmission signatures of their own command ships during message relay sequences. From their perspective, the false information will appear to originate from trusted sources within their own fleets. Wright's concentration intensified as he began implementing electronic warfare techniques that relied on exotic matter processing capabilities far beyond standard galactic technology. Okafor's security teams completed their positioning throughout the station's critical sections, establishing defensive positions that took advantage of the facility's unique architecture. Unlike conventional space installations, Kepler Station had been constructed around the requirements of exotic matter containment and gravitational anomaly research. The resulting structure provided defensive opportunities that alien boarding parties would find completely unfamiliar. Captain, my teams are ready for anything they might send at us, Okafor reported through the communication system. The station's layout provides advantages that these empires cannot anticipate. Our people know every maintenance shaft, every emergency protocol, and every system that can be weaponized if necessary. The exotic matter processing facility beneath the bridge generated subtle harmonics that most crew members had learned to ignore over years of operation. Today, those vibrations carried additional significance as Cross's team prepared to manipulate the contained micro-black hole in ways that would demonstrate humanity's mastery of forces that galactic civilization considered purely theoretical. The gravitational anomaly that had attracted human attention to this location would soon become the foundation for defensive capabilities that would redefine how the galaxy viewed human technological achievement. Wright's first successful disinformation injection appeared as a routine tactical update within the Vorthak fleet's internal communication network. The false data suggested that celestial ships were charging their energy weapons while maintaining communication silence, behavior consistent with preparing for surprise attacks. Admiral Kress's response proved immediate and predictable, ordering defensive formations that position Vorthak vessels for potential engagement with their celestial counterparts rather than focusing exclusively on the human station. The Vorthak are repositioning based on the false intelligence, Wright reported, satisfaction evident in his voice. Admiral Kress is interpreting normal celestial energy matrix operations as preparation for aggressive action. I'm detecting increased tension in their fleet communications. Kozlov's engineering teams completed the first phase of weapon system integration, transforming mining equipment into defensive installations without significantly altering the station's external appearance. The exotic matter extractors now functioned as energy projection systems capable of generating focused beams that could penetrate standard galactic shielding technology. The gravitational field manipulators used for processing operations had been reconfigured to create defensive barriers in targeting disruption fields. Captain, we're ready to demonstrate what human engineering can accomplish when necessity removes conventional limitations, Kozlov announced, his voice carrying 15 years of anticipation for this moment. Thorne studied the tactical situation, noting how each empire continued operating according to their assumptions about human capabilities, while remaining unaware that their own communication networks had been compromised. The foundation for survival lay in exploiting these advantages before the alien commanders discovered the true nature of their opposition. The next few hours would determine whether humanity's technological achievements could overcome the overwhelming numerical superiority of three galactic empires operating in apparent coordination against a single human installation. Through the observation ports, the alien fleets maintained their positions while their commanders processed intelligence reports and strategic assessments based on incomplete and increasingly inaccurate information. Kepler Station continued broadcasting standard civilian identification codes while quietly preparing to reveal capabilities that would force the galaxy to reconsider everything they believed about human technological development and military potential. "They're firing on each other, Captain. Admiral Kress just launched a full missile barrage at the Celestial Formation." Wright's voice carried disbelief as he watched the tactical displays explode with weapons fire between fleets that had been maintaining careful diplomatic positioning moments earlier. The false intelligence he had injected into their communication networks 8 days ago had finally reached critical mass, triggering exactly the chain reaction Thorne had orchestrated through weeks of careful manipulation. The bridge shuddered slightly as nearby explosions created gravitational ripples that affected even their distant observation position. Through the reinforced viewports, space itself seemed to burn as energy weapons carved brilliant lines between the three fleets, while missile swarms traced deadly arcs across the battlefield. Thorne gripped the command console, watching his strategy unfold with the mixture of satisfaction and horror that accompanied successful deception on such a catastrophic scale. "Celestial ships are returning fire with their energy matrix weapons," Wright continued, his fingers dancing across the communication intercept systems that provided them with unprecedented access to enemy tactical communications. The Vorthak believed the Celestials were preparing a coordinated attack with Krek's support. The Celestials are convinced the Vorthak and Kreks formed a secret alliance to deny them access to this strategic position. The Krek swarm leader is interpreting both fleet movements as acts of territorial aggression requiring immediate biological response. Kozlov's voice crackled through the engineering communication system as he monitored the battle from his position near the exotic matter processing arrays. "Captain, the energy signatures from those explosions are off the charts. A single Vorthak dreadnought carries enough firepower to sterilize a planetary surface. They're using that level of destructive capability against each other while we sit here invisible to their sensors." The station's passive sensor networks provided detailed intelligence about the developing battle without revealing their position to any of the combatants. Kepler Station maintained complete communication silence while alien fleets tore each other apart in a conflict that had begun with Wright's carefully crafted disinformation campaign. Each empire remained convinced that their intelligence assessments were accurate, that their enemies had betrayed diplomatic protocols, and that immediate military response was justified. Dr. Cross emerged from the physics laboratory, his face reflecting the conflicted emotions of a scientist watching theoretical destruction become horrifying reality. "Marcus, the gravitational distortions from those weapons are affecting our containment systems. The micro-black hole is responding to the external energy fluctuations. We need to begin stabilization procedures before the battle damage compromises our primary systems." Thorne nodded, recognizing that their strategy had succeeded beyond expectations while creating new dangers they had not anticipated. "Begin preparations for Protocol 7 activation. If this battle continues, we'll need defensive capabilities that can function independent of the current containment systems." Through the tactical displays, the scope of destruction became apparent as Wright's intercept systems processed damage reports from all three fleets. Vorthak dreadnoughts exchanged devastating missile volleys with celestial energy projectors, while Krek's bioships released swarms of attack organisms that consumed enemy vessels from within. The mathematical precision of celestial formations dissolved into chaotic energy discharges. Vorthak military discipline crumbled as commanders responded to perceived betrayals with uncontrolled aggression. Krek's biological coordination degenerated into primitive territorial responses as their vessels attacked anything that moved within their sensor range. 67 confirmed ship destructions across all three fleets, Wright reported, his voice subdued by the magnitude of casualties they had orchestrated. Multiple capital ships destroyed, hundreds of smaller vessels disabled or abandoned. The battle is spreading as reinforcement squadrons arrive and immediately engage whatever targets they encounter first. Okafor's security teams maintain their positions throughout the station while monitoring the external battle through internal sensor networks. The irony was not lost on any of them that humanity's most successful military engagement against galactic powers involved remaining completely invisible while their enemies destroyed each other based on manufactured intelligence reports. "Captain, the Kreks are releasing some kind of biological weapon," Wright announced, alarm creeping into his voice as new sensor data revealed expanding clouds of organic material drifting between the combat zones. Whatever they've deployed is affecting the hull integrity of both Vorthak and Celestial ships. The biological agents appear to be consuming ship armor and breaching internal compartments. The battle reached its climax as all three empires committed their reserve forces to what each believed was a fight for survival against coordinated enemies. Vorthak reinforcements arrived expecting to face Celestial Kreks alliance forces and immediately attacked both fleets without attempting communication. Celestial command ships calculated that maximum energy projection was required to overcome combined Vorthak Kreks military capabilities and began charging weapon systems that had never been used at full capacity. Kreks bioship swarms interpreted the arrival of additional enemy forces as confirmation that territorial expansion required complete elimination of competing species. Thorn watched the destruction with growing awareness that their deception had succeeded too well. The three empires were not simply engaging in limited tactical conflict, they were attempting to annihilate each other with weapons designed for planetary conquest. Right. Are any of the fleet commanders attempting to establish communication with their counterparts? Negative, Captain. Each fleet believes they're responding to unprovoked aggression from coordinated enemies. The disinformation has become self-reinforcing as actual battle damage confirms their worst assumptions about enemy intentions. Wright's analysis revealed the terrifying effectiveness of their strategy. The false intelligence had created a feedback loop where genuine military actions provided evidence supporting fabricated threat assessments. The station's exotic matter processors registered increasing energy fluctuations as the nearby battle generated gravitational distortions that penetrated their shielding systems. Cross's team worked frantically to maintain containment field stability while external explosions created space-time ripples that threatened to destabilize their carefully controlled micro-black hole. "Captain, we're approaching the limits of our containment systems," Cross reported through the communication network. "The gravitational interference from the battle is forcing us to choose between maintaining invisibility or ensuring the safety of our primary power source. If we lose containment, the resulting explosion will dwarf anything these fleets are doing to each other." Thorn realized that their success had created an impossible situation. The battle they had orchestrated to protect Kepler Station now threatened to destroy them through uncontrolled gravitational effects. The alien fleets were too engaged in mutual destruction to pose immediate threats to the station, but their weapons fire was generating energy patterns that could trigger catastrophic failures in humanity's most advanced technology. "Begin preparations for Kepler device activation," Thorn ordered, accepting that their survival now required revealing the true extent of human capabilities to whoever survived the current battle. "If we're going to survive this chaos, we need to control it, rather than simply hiding from it." Wright continued monitoring the battle communications while preparing for the transition from passive observation to active engagement. The three-way conflict had eliminated dozens of enemy vessels while revealing the strategic weaknesses of galactic military doctrine. When the surviving fleets discovered that humans had orchestrated their mutual destruction, the diplomatic implications would reshape interstellar politics for generations. The exotic matter processing facility began generating new harmonic frequencies as Cross's team initiated the most dangerous experiment in human history, weaponizing a contained black hole while surrounded by three alien fleets engaged in total warfare. The battle Thorn had created through deception would soon become the proving ground for humanity's emergence as a galactic military power. "Captain, they know." Wright's words cut through the bridge atmosphere like a blade through flesh as his intercepted communications revealed the terrible truth that Thorn had been dreading for the past 18 hours. The alien fleet commanders had finally identified the common source of their manipulated intelligence reports, and three separate species that had been destroying each other in manufactured fury were now coordinating their response against the human installation they had previously ignored. The tactical displays showed a complete transformation in fleet positioning as surviving ships from all three empires began moving toward Kepler Station with a coordinated precision that had been absent during their mutual destruction. Admiral Kress commanded the remaining Vorthak dreadnoughts, their armor scarred by celestial energy weapons, but their firepower still capable of reducing the station to cosmic debris. The celestial hegemony's geometric formations reformed around their surviving command vessels, energy matrices pulsing with power levels that registered beyond the station's measurement capabilities. Krek's bioships coalesced into attack swarms that moved with the biological certainty of predators who had identified their actual prey. "How long before they reach effective weapons range?" Thorne asked, his voice maintaining the steady tone that had carried his crew through 8 days of successful deception and manipulation. 46 hours at their current approach velocity, Wright replied, sweat beading on his forehead, despite the environmental controls maintaining perfect atmospheric conditions. "But Captain, they're not just approaching for immediate attack. The communication intercepts indicate they're planning a coordinated siege. They intend to surround us completely and demand surrender before attempting any direct assault." Dr. Cross burst through the laboratory access hatch, carrying data tablets covered with equations that describe forces capable of rewriting local spacetime physics. "Marcus, I've completed the final calculations for controlled gravitational destabilization. The Kepler device can be activated, but the process will require 43 hours of continuous preparation. The containment fields must be recalibrated in precise stages to prevent uncontrolled collapse that would destroy everything within several light minutes." Thorne processed the timing against their tactical situation, recognizing that their survival window was measured in hours rather than days. "What are the casualty projections for our crew during device activation?" Cross hesitated, consulting his calculations with the reluctance of a scientist forced to quantify human lives in mathematical terms. "Conservative estimates suggest 60% crew mortality during the destabilization process. The gravitational distortions will affect life support systems, structural integrity, and basic biological functions. We're essentially weaponizing the forces that hold space-time together." Kozlov's voice echoed through the communications system from his position in the engineering sections where his teams were implementing final modifications to their exotic matter manipulation systems. "Captain, the mining equipment conversions are complete, but conventional weapons won't be effective against three coordinated fleets. Our only advantage lies in technologies these empires don't understand and capabilities they cannot anticipate." The bridge crew worked in tense silence as they monitored the approaching alien forces while preparing for an activation sequence that would either secure their survival or result in their mutual annihilation, along with anyone unlucky enough to be within the gravitational effect radius. Thorne opened a secure communication channel to Earth Command, knowing that this might be the last report from humanity's most classified deep space operation. "Earth Command, this is Kepler Station. We are implementing Kepler device activation in response to coordinated assault by 3 Galactic Empire fleets. Casualty projections are severe, but this represents our only viable defensive option. Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol 9 throughout all classified installations in this sector." Thorne paused, considering the implications of what he was about to authorize. "We are prepared to demonstrate human capabilities that will require significant revision of first contact diplomatic protocols." The response from Earth came through quantum communication systems that crossed interstellar distances in microseconds. "Kepler Station, you are authorized to implement any measures necessary for survival and mission completion. Your actions will establish humanity's initial position in galactic politics. Make them count." Cross's physics team began the delicate process of recalibrating containment fields around their micro-black hole, adjusting gravitational forces with the precision required to prevent accidental destruction while preparing for intentional weaponization. The exotic matter processing arrays generated increasingly complex harmonic patterns as they shifted from civilian mining operations to military applications that pushed human engineering beyond all previous limitations. Captain, the alien fleets are broadcasting surrender ultimatums on all frequencies, Wright reported, his communication intercept systems now operating in reverse as he monitored enemy demands rather than manipulating their intelligence networks. Admiral Kress is offering clemency in exchange for immediate capitulation and full disclosure of our deception methods. The Celestial Commander is promising swift execution rather than prolonged interrogation. The Krek swarm leader is transmitting biological threat assessments that don't translate well, but Dr. Cross believes they're describing various forms of living consumption. Okafor's security teams completed their final defensive preparations, establishing positions throughout the station that would allow them to resist boarding actions, while the Kepler device activation continued. The irony was apparent to everyone that their defensive strategy required surviving long enough to activate a weapon that would probably kill most of them while destroying their enemies. Captain, gravitational field fluctuations are beginning, Cross announced as his team initiated the first stage of controlled destabilization. The micro-black hole is responding to our manipulation, but the process creates space-time distortions that will affect every system on the station. Communications, life support, structural integrity, everything will be compromised as we approach full activation. The station's superstructure began generating subtle vibrations as gravitational forces shifted in patterns that human engineering had never attempted before. Emergency lighting activated throughout several sections as primary power systems struggled to function normally, while space-time itself warped around their position. Thorne felt his inner ear responding to gravitational changes that made balance and orientation increasingly difficult. All crew members implement Protocol 7 emergency procedures, Thorne announced through the station-wide communication system. We are beginning Kepler device activation. Expect severe environmental disruption, communication failures, and structural instability. Maintain positions and continue mission-critical operations regardless of system failures. Wright's communication systems began experiencing interference as gravitational distortions affected quantum entanglement networks throughout the station. Captain, I'm losing contact with several sections. The exotic matter processing is creating electromagnetic effects that disrupt standard communication protocols. Through the observation ports, the approaching alien fleets maintained their coordinated advance while their commanders prepared for what they assumed would be a conventional siege against a desperate human installation. None of their military doctrine included contingencies for enemies capable of weaponizing controlled gravitational collapse, and their strategic planning remained focused on overwhelming force rather than unprecedented physics. Cross's team reached the second stage of gravitational destabilization as exotic matter flows increased beyond all previous operational parameters. The contained micro-black hole began exhibiting behavioral changes that registered on sensors throughout the station, generating space-time ripples that would soon become apparent to anyone monitoring this region of space. Marcus, the point of return has passed, Cross reported, his voice strained by the physical effort required to speak normally, while gravitational forces affected basic biological functions. The Kepler device activation will continue regardless of external circumstances. In 37 hours, we will demonstrate whether human theoretical physics can overcome 3 galactic empires, or whether we've simply created an elaborate method of mutual suicide. Thorne gripped his command console as the station shuddered under gravitational stresses that its designers had never anticipated. Watching the alien fleets approach while humanity's most dangerous experiment began reshaping local space-time according to mathematical principles that would either secure their survival or ensure that their destruction would be remembered across the galaxy. They're beginning their assault pattern, Captain. All 3 fleets moving into attack formation. Wright's voice cracked as gravitational distortions from the Kepler device made speaking increasingly difficult, his words distorted by space-time ripples that affected sound transmission throughout the bridge. The approaching alien armadas had coordinated their final approach with the precision of experienced conquerors, unaware that their target was simultaneously preparing to demonstrate physics that would redefine their understanding of warfare. Thorne struggled to maintain his footing as the station's artificial gravity fluctuated wildly, the deck plates beneath his feet vibrating with harmonics generated by their weaponized micro-black hole. Through the observation ports, the alien fleets appeared as brilliant points of light accelerating toward their position, with weapons charging for what should have been a devastating coordinated strike against a helpless human installation. Gravitational cascade reaching critical threshold, Dr. Cross announced from the physics laboratory, his voice transmitted through emergency communication systems as standard networks failed under the stress of warp spacetime. The micro black hole is responding to our manipulation beyond theoretical projections. The gravitational field is expanding faster than calculated. The first wave of enemy fire struck Kepler station's outer defensive screens just as Cross initiated full Kepler device activation. Vorthak missile swarms impacted against gravitational barriers that should not have existed, their explosive yields dissipating harmlessly as spacetime distortions absorbed kinetic energy and converted it into additional gravitational mass. Celestial energy beams bent around the station as exotic matter fields created lens effects that focused their weapons back toward their own fleet formations. Jesus Christ, Kozlov's voice echoed through the engineering communication system as his teams watched their mining equipment perform beyond every design specification. The exotic matter extractors are generating gravitational fields strong enough to trap capital ships. Those Krex biovessels are being pulled into decaying orbits around our position. The bridge shuddered violently as the station's superstructure began failing under stresses that no human construction had ever been designed to withstand. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically as hull breaches in the outer sections vented atmosphere into space, the escaping gases immediately caught by gravitational fields and drawn into spiral patterns around the expanding event horizon. Wright's tactical displays flickered as electromagnetic interference from the gravitational weapon disrupted sensor networks throughout the station. Captain, I'm reading massive structural failures in sections 7 through 12. We're losing life support to half the station, but the alien fleets are experiencing worse problems. Their ships are being dragged into orbital patterns they cannot escape. Through the chaos of failing systems and gravitational distortion, Thorne watched enemy vessels struggle against forces they could not understand or combat effectively. Vorthak dreadnoughts fired their engines at maximum thrust while being inexorably drawn into decaying spirals around the station. Celestial ships attempted to use their energy matrices to counteract the gravitational pull, only to discover that their power output was being absorbed and redirected by exotic matter fields. Hull breach in Section 4. Okafor's voice crackled through the emergency communication system as his security teams fought to maintain critical systems while the station tore itself apart. We've lost contact with engineering teams in the lower levels. The gravitational shear is affecting structural integrity throughout the entire facility. Cross's physics laboratory suffered catastrophic decompression as the outer hull split along stress fractures created by impossible gravitational gradients. His emergency transmission carried the desperate urgency of a scientist watching his greatest theoretical achievement become horrifying reality. Marcus, the weapon is working beyond our projections, but we're losing containment control. The gravitational cascade is becoming self-sustaining. The alien assault collapsed as physics overcame military strategy in the most fundamental way possible. Krex bioships, designed for atmospheric combat and orbital insertion, found their biological systems failing as gravitational tides stretched their organic hulls beyond structural limits. Celestial vessels built for energy manipulation and mathematical precision discovered their computational systems unable to process the chaotic gravitational variables generated by weaponized spacetime distortion. 217 enemy vessels confirmed trapped in gravitational orbit, Wright reported, his voice barely audible through communication systems damaged by electromagnetic effects from the exotic matter cascade. They're firing everything they have at us, but their weapons are being bent back toward their own formations by the gravitational lensing. The station's rotation stopped permanently as the Kepler device drew power from every available system, converting their carefully maintained artificial gravity into additional mass for the expanding gravitational field. Thorne felt his body weight fluctuating as local spacetime warped around their position, making normal movement nearly impossible while emergency lighting cast shifting shadows through the damaged bridge. Captain, we're receiving surrender transmissions from all 3 fleet commanders, Wright announced with disbelief as his damaged communication systems processed alien distress signals. Admiral Kress is requesting immediate ceasefire. The Celestial Commander is transmitting mathematical surrender formulas. The Krek's swarm leader is broadcasting biological submission patterns. Kozlov's final transmission from the engineering sections carried the grim satisfaction of an engineer who had pushed human technology beyond every theoretical limitation. Captain, the exotic matter systems are approaching critical failure, but we've achieved something impossible. We've created a localized gravitational field that can trap enemy fleets without destroying our own position. The weapon works, but it's killing us in the process. The casualty reports began filtering through damaged communication networks as Okafor's security teams conducted damage assessments throughout the station. 312 crew members had died during the gravitational cascade, their bodies subjected to tidal forces that human physiology could not survive. The survivors maintained critical systems from the heavily shielded core sections, while the outer areas of the station became uninhabitable due to gravitational distortion and structural collapse. Cross, can you stabilize the gravitational field without losing our defensive capability? Thorne asked, recognizing that their weapon success had created new challenges for long-term survival. Cross's response came through emergency backup systems, as his laboratory's primary communication equipment had been destroyed by gravitational shear. The field is stabilizing naturally as it reaches equilibrium with local spacetime. The trapped enemy fleets are providing additional gravitational mass that maintains the effect without requiring continuous power input from our systems. Through the observation ports, the aftermath of their desperate gamble became visible as disabled alien vessels drifted in decaying orbits around the station, their crews trapped by gravitational forces they could neither understand nor escape. The coordinated assault of 3 galactic empires had been defeated by human physics applied with desperate creativity, but the cost in human lives and station infrastructure would require months of repair and reconstruction. Thorne opened communication channels to the trapped alien fleets, knowing that the next phase of their survival would require diplomacy more dangerous than the physics that had saved them from immediate destruction. Admiral Kress, this is Captain Thorne of Kepler. Station, I'm prepared to discuss terms for your fleet's safe passage through our defensive perimeter. Thorne's voice carried across space to the trapped Vorthak commander, whose massive dreadnought hung powerless in the gravitational field that continued holding over 200 alien vessels in slowly decaying orbits around the human installation. The response came through heavily damaged communication systems as the alien admiral struggled to comprehend what had occurred during the past 9 days of impossible physics. Captain Thorne, your species possesses weapons technology that violates every known principle of galactic warfare. We require immediate clarification of your territorial claims and defensive capabilities before agreeing to any withdrawal procedures. Wright worked frantically to maintain communication links with all 3 trapped fleets, while simultaneously broadcasting false technical specifications designed to reinforce the aliens' growing belief that humanity commanded physics-defying military capabilities throughout this sector of space. The exotic matter processors, damaged but still functional, provided the quantum signature generators necessary to create convincing evidence of additional human installations that existed only in carefully crafted electronic intelligence reports. Captain, I'm transmitting coordinates for 12 classified human facilities within this strategic zone, Wright reported, his fingers moving across interfaces that generated fictitious sensor readings indistinguishable from genuine military installations. The alien fleet commanders are receiving technical data suggesting each location possesses similar gravitational manipulation capabilities. Dr. Cross emerged from the damaged physics laboratory, his face bearing the exhaustion of a scientist who had survived the practical application of theories that should have remained purely academic. Marcus, the gravitational field is stabilizing, but we've exhausted our exotic matter reserves. The Kepler device was a one-time weapon. If these fleets discover that limitation, they'll eventually find ways to escape the gravitational trap. Thorne nodded, recognizing that their survival now depended entirely on maintaining the fiction that humanity possessed multiple installations capable of weaponizing controlled gravitational collapse. The mathematical precision required for such deception demanded careful coordination between truth and fabrication, creating sustainable lies that could withstand alien intelligence analysis for months or years. Begin transmission of gravity pulse beacon specifications to all fleet commanders, Thorne ordered, knowing that their fictional defensive network required technical credibility that only genuine physics could provide. Make sure they understand that any aggressive action against human installations will trigger coordinated response from our entire strategic defense grid. The gravity pulse beacon existed only as modified mining sensor equipment that generated exotic matter signatures identical to active weapon systems, but the alien commanders had no method for distinguishing between actual defensive installations and clever electronic deception. Their recent experience with impossible human physics had shattered their confidence in their own technological assessments. Kozlov's engineering teams completed emergency repairs to critical life support systems while maintaining the appearance of a fully operational military installation rather than a damaged research facility held together by emergency procedures and desperate innovation. The exotic matter processing equipment continued generating the electromagnetic signatures necessary to support their fictional capabilities, creating sensor readings that reinforced alien assumptions about human technological superiority. Captain, the Celestial Hegemony Commander is requesting detailed territorial boundary definitions, Wright reported as alien diplomatic protocols attempted to establish formal recognition of human claims. They're offering to designate this entire sector as a strategic exclusion zone in exchange for guaranteed safe passage for their damaged vessels. The negotiations continued for 6 days as Thorne carefully balanced apparent strength with reasonable diplomatic concessions, creating agreements that established humanity's first formal treaties with galactic civilization while concealing the desperate limitations of their actual military capabilities. Each alien empire agreed to territorial recognition and strategic withdrawal procedures in exchange for technical assistance in escaping the gravitational field that held their fleets captive. All three empires have ratified the territorial accords, Wright announced as the final diplomatic transmissions confirmed humanity's emergence as a recognized galactic power. They're classifying human space as a restricted military zone and recommending that other civilizations avoid this sector unless specifically authorized by human authorities. The alien fleet withdrawal required 3 weeks of careful coordination as Cross's team provided genuine, technical assistance for escaping their gravitational weapon while maintaining the fiction that such assistance could be withdrawn at any time. Damaged enemy vessels limped away from Kepler Station, carrying reports that would reshape galactic military doctrine and diplomatic protocols for generations. Okafor's security teams maintained vigilant monitoring of the departing fleets while beginning the massive reconstruction effort required to repair damage from their gravitational weapon activation. The station's outer sections remained uninhabitable, but the core facilities could support long-term operations with careful resource management and continued technical innovation. 6 months after the siege ended, intelligence reports confirmed that all three galactic empires had implemented strategic policies treating human space as a zone of unknown but dangerous military capabilities. Trade routes were rerouted to avoid human territorial claims. Military expeditions received explicit orders to maintain minimum safe distances from suspected human installations, and diplomatic protocols established formal procedures for interaction with a species capable of weaponizing fundamental physics. Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command, Wright reported as quantum communication systems delivered the first official recognition of their achievement. Humanity's first contact protocols are being completely rewritten based on our demonstration that deception and superior technology can establish diplomatic equality with galactic powers. Thorne stood in the reconstructed bridge of Kepler Station, surrounded by the 535 survivors of humanity's most successful military deception, watching sensor displays that showed empty space where 3 alien armadas had once threatened total annihilation. Their desperate gamble with weaponized physics had accidentally created the foundation for humanity's recognition as a legitimate interstellar civilization, built entirely on the willingness of ordinary people to sacrifice everything for a bluff that could have destroyed them all. The micro-black hole continued its carefully contained existence in the station's lower levels. No longer a weapon, but once again a source of exotic matter for humanity's expanding exploration of physics that galactic civilization still considered impossible. In the depths of space, Kepler Station maintained its lonely vigil at the crossroads of three empires, its crew forever changed by their transformation from miners and researchers into the architects of humanity's first galactic victory. If this story gave you chills, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Now we want to hear from you. And here's the big question. Do you think humanity's deception about having multiple gravity weapon stations can hold up long term? Or will the alien empires eventually discover the truth? Drop your tactical analysis in the comments below. We read every single one, and some of your strategies have been absolutely brilliant. Thanks for joining us at Stellar HFY, and see you in the next story.